All right. So the first thing that I'll just chat about is my background. So, from 0 to 3 years, I really didn't play with children. I was living on a farm, fairly isolated with my grandparents. My mum was a teacher, and so I would um, go and visit the school after school. So that was probably my only contact with children. And I think when I went through this, I think it's sort of interesting for us to do as as therapists, just thinking about, okay, so what are our times of being involved with other children, or other people. Then 4 to 5 years I went to preschool and Sunday school. 5 to 8 years I went to 4 different schools. So that thing of, because I think it's really important to break down um, whether it's the initial meeting, that the skills that somebody needs, or the interaction somebody needs when they're first meeting someone, are different to when you already know them. And then I was an assistant leader for ballet and church. Um, didn't enjoy sports, so I'm not sort of very competitive. I don't think it's because I don't mind. I don't like losing, because I mean I do quite like games, and I don't mind losing. So I think I just didn't like sports. So I did a lot of dance and yoga instead of PE from about year 9, because we were allowed to do that at our school. So, again, these are the sorts of things that when we're thinking about social groups, we need to think, okay, what is that person going to do in their real life? So what are the family interests? Often kids that have parents that are interested in sport, the kids will need to be interested in, will be interested in sports. And so that's the sort of group that they're going to go to. Um, that's what you're, I guess, working on in your social groups, is to get them to have the skills to then cope when they're in the real world. But if they're not sporty, if they're arty, or they're interested in dance, then it's preparing them for that sort of engagement. And then of course there's preparing them for school as well. So then 18 to 21, I was much more sort of leading things. So leading a church drama group, teaching dance. 21 to 33 years, teaching dance, people, including people with and without disabilities. The other thing that I did for about 4 years full time, and then another 2 years part time, was which I think informs what I do, is working with people with moderate intellectual disability, 10 people, moderate to severe intellectual disability. It was a unique place that would not be funded today. And they were working on, it was an electronics assembly factory. And each of those people, in order to continue their work, one of the really important things was regular check-ins. And I find that I learnt that, and that's really important in when you're running a social group, is regular check-ins with each person. Then from 33, so, even though, yeah, like I sort of feel that was a group, and I was running around from one person to the other. There were people without disabilities there as well. So wording them up on supporting people as well. But yeah, 33 to 44 years, Melbourne, teaching dance, assisting dance classes, helping with Chrysalida. So that was the first OT groups, I think, that I ran on. And that's not true. When I was in Sydney, so 33 is when I went to Melbourne, but when I was in Sydney, I did help with a play group where I was working at an assessment centre. So that was probably my first experience working with another early intervention teacher, which I'll talk about in a minute too. So yeah, friendship groups at Chrysalida, they're very much a mental health approach. They developed their skills working in a CAMS site, a child and adolescent mental health site. And so very much it was not leading the group like you would in a fine motor group. They had activities, but there was a lot of the children leading the group, and being given options. And one of the significant strategies, that there would always be two therapists in a group, and one of the most significant strategies was the therapists talking to each other about a child. So, for instance, I'm noticing that someone in the group's feeling a little bit withdrawn. I wonder what we can do about that. Or I wonder, I'm noticing the group's getting a bit heightened. I wonder if we need to do something quiet now, just so that we don't get too overwhelmed. So that, I think, is a really useful technique that I learnt from Melissa Bryan at Chrysalida, and she what was I going to say? So now that I don't have a second person in the group, a second therapist in the group these days, because I'm mainly working sort of with teenagers and older primary school, I would still do that sort of thing with them as well. It wouldn't be the sort of thing, I don't think it's so effective younger. The kids don't really understand that. They don't take it on themselves, I guess. Yeah. So then I did, for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, I worked with an early intervention teacher and learnt a lot from her. So that was our sing, dance, play, early intervention. And then we initially called it sing, dance, play, then we called it early intervention, because it was easier for funding. So with her, I think one of the main things I learnt was setting up a play environment, some play, like setting up like a sandbox, or with figurines in it, or something like that, and letting the kids engage, and then maybe giving an example of some engagement. So again, very much children-led and meeting them at their level, was what I learnt from Anne. Now, I'm not sure about the chronology of this. At some point, I got the Friendship Saver program from Connie Melatzis, who's a psychologist. She developed that with, I think, high school children. One of the beautiful things that Connie does is she'll present information, but it's very child-led in order to, and she's done a PhD now on the way she works, and she calls it a dynamic group. So again, you're sort of following the child. She might be Connie Buckingham, if you look her up as well. Her married name is Buckingham, but she was Melatzis when she created a little manual. And from her also, I got the concept of assertiveness and an assertiveness triangle. So the way I do it, I can't remember how she did it, but I have assertiveness at the top. Actually, what I'll do is I'll stop the share of that, and I'll do a whiteboard, because this is something I now use in practically every group. All my kids would know this. I don't like the red, but anyway, assertive. This is know your feelings, and this is talk kindly. So these are the things that we think about when we're trying to cooperate or negotiate. We don't want to just be someone that follows. We want to learn some assertiveness skills. And part of that is knowing your feelings and identifying them. And sometimes you might even say, oh, I'm feeling really left out now. But it's also, whatever you say, it's doing it in a kind way, being caring for the other people. And so that these are sort of the underpinnings of being assertive. Yeah. Okay, so I'll stop that share and go back to this one. So did Karen Stagnetti's Learn to Play course? Have either of you done that?
I have.
Yep.
No.
Cool.
I've just read them.
All right, I'll flash up the basics that I use for you in a minute. And then I used I couldn't remember the name of it. The Incredible Flexible You is the younger social thinking program. So I did it sort of, I guess, religiously. Like I did it properly 1 year with a group where you do 10 sessions across the year. But I guess the only difference is that we gave it 2 hours. So in addition to doing the program, they had almost an hour of free play at the end, which meant that you really were using those skills immediately. Whereas really the program's set up to be just a 1 hour program where there's little activities to go through. But I think it was really important to have the free play at the end. And the free play was sort of dovetailed with what we knew about Karen Stagnetti. Most of those groups were with another therapist, Gail Petrola Reyes. I think that's who I did it with. But certainly with a second therapist, and I would recommend that if you were contemplating doing that. Social thinking is a bit out of fashion now, because the neuro divergent people feel that it's too prescriptive. But I still think, I still credit it as giving me a bit of an understanding. Then we just created our own groups. One of them, and I'll show some of those. We had a Lego group going. Oh, that's true. I didn't put that. I read the Lego therapy book as well. That's really useful by Legoff. And they did some nice research. The main thing with the Lego is, or the way we used it, because we didn't use as much language as they did, because we were doing it with a younger population. They were doing it with an older population. So we would do it from about 6 years old, and we would just have the supplier and the builder working in pairs on some Lego. The supplier would look at the Lego manual and tell and find the blocks for the builder, and the builder would then build the blocks. Whereas with older children, you can actually get, I can't remember how you do it, but you get, one of the children has to describe the Lego block to find, which just 6-year-old would be way too hard, I think, for it to be enjoyable. So we ran we ran Lego groups for a couple of years every term. They were very popular. Again, you really need 2 therapists though. On my own, I ran drama group for boys on the spectrum, and that was partly a parent looked, well, you run dance, can't you run drama? And I was learning some drama at the time. So I gave that a go. And the way that worked was some drama exercises, then brainstorming around, cooperation and negotiation around a story that they would then put together, and they would perform that for their parents at the end of the session. So, quite a neat little session that was, fairly, I guess, easy to like an easy format, like this sort of the same format more or less every week, um, but lots and lots of support as they engaged in problem solving. And so I probably ran that for, I don't know, 8 years altogether, long time. And then we've just done the social competence, of course, with Chris, which I didn't put. Yeah. And you'll see in my data collection, I've changed my data collection a little bit because of her course. And to me, the beauty, what I got from her course is that socializing can follow a task analysis. So that hadn't been a penny that had dropped in my mind. So that, to me, the obvious example, the best example that she gave was playing handball is a social activity, and there's a task analysis that you can write about that activity that you can then work out with the child, what are the bits they can do and what are the bits they need to work on, which I think is, yeah, a really nice way of doing it. And so now I run a pair group online sometimes. But I mainly run holiday programs, always in areas of interest of the children. I get kids together that I think have got some sort of a shared interest. And so it's board games. Like I said, in the holidays we did a cooperative video game. Then I run a music and it's a music group, I guess. Music and art group, sorry. We do some music and we do some visual arts as well. And then another group of girls have been doing sort of things like going to bounce, so social activities that have got some, or going swimming, some physical activity sort of stuff in the real world. And then I also continue to support Leap into Dance, which is dance classes, and I wrote a handbook to help with that as well. So again, sort of pulling my ideas together.